Welcome to this live Q&A hosted by the Netherlands Bach Society. I am Marloes Biermans, Artistic Assistant at the Netherlands Bach Society. This is the first time we are organizing a live stream on our YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about a special work by Bach, the Musikalisches Opfer, BWV 1079. Bach composed its music for Frederick the Great of Prussia, and it consists of 13 parts, 2 ricercars, 1 trio sonata and 10 canons. Both the work itself and the way we recorded it are special, and we thought it would be a good topic to discuss in a live Q&A. I probably hardly need to introduce our first speaker. Welcome to our artistic director, violinist Shunske Sato. Welcome, Shunske. Our other guest, Onno van Ameijde, is one of the video directors who regularly works for us. He directed the recordings of the complete Musikalisches Opfer, which we will publish in several installments on YouTube this year. Welcome, Onno.
Nice to be here, thank you.
In April, we released the Ricercar A3 from the Musikalisches Opfer. This week, we released the first 2 canons. This seemed like a great opportunity to tell you a bit more about the choices we make in our recordings. Shunske and Onno will give a little introduction as a start. Please don't hesitate to put all your questions in the chat. My colleague Stefan, who is moderating this Q&A, and I will put them through to Shunske and Onno. We will try to answer them all. Shunske, when we released the Ricercar, some of our followers noticed directly that we did something special, using a piano. We never did that before. Could you tell us why you choose to work with this instrument?
Well, I should say that maybe the choice was less mine than it was out of pure historical facts. It comes from the fact that Frederick the Great collected the Zilbermann fortepianos, which were quite new and state of the art, and quite revolutionary. Nothing short of revolutionary, actually. Basically, a completely different kind of keyboard instrument than there ever had been, and he collected them like. I guess some wealthy people might collect cars, or expensive cars, or I don't know, airplanes. I don't know, but he had apparently 12 or 13 of them, I believe. I don't know why, but he just did. And so on that particular visit of Bach's at Frederick's, he was shown these pianos and must have played on them. That was one thing. And also, can I talk about the gamba as well, Marloes?
Yes, of course.
It's an interesting combination because on the one hand, you have the state-of-the-art, brand new, revolutionary instrument, the fortepiano. And then on the other hand, you have the gamba. And this was also a very deliberate choice because, well, first of all, it's just the blend of colors is fascinating. You almost, I mean, I don't think I really have heard it myself until I did this project, to be honest. But so on the one hand you had the fortepianos, the brand new fortepianos, and then on the other hand you had this very strong gamba playing culture in Frederick's court, which was already a bit of an anomaly. An anachronism at that time. The gamba had already begun to be seen as outdated and old-fashioned, and the cello was already much more in demand. Pieces were being written for solo cello more than for the gamba. But for one reason or another, there must have been also fantastic players. That must be a reason. But the gamba, this old-fashioned instrument, very stubbornly stayed around in this court, and there was also a lot of music great music written for the instrument as well. So yeah, just this fascinating combination of very new and very old. That was something I also thought I would take the occasion to showcase. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. But Bach didn't specify which types of instruments he would like to use.
No, that is true. And I think, yeah, a lot of the pieces, well, the canons anyway, they are contrapuntal. So they can be, it's more about the interlocking lines and how they interlock and how they create a total piece of music, and less about the instruments that they're played on. The only time in the collection of the pieces where instruments are actually prescribed are in the sonata, and also one of the canons. I don't really know why, to be honest, because all the other canons are left completely blank in that regard. Yeah, nowadays one has many different recordings out there, no? Everything from the usual harpsichord, cello, flute, violin, to using many different other kinds of instruments. So it's wonderful. I mean, I think it's great that it can be enjoyed by so many different ways. But I also thought this historical fact of fortepiano and gamba at Frederick's court brought together, that was not a combination I found interestingly very often. So I thought this was the moment to do so.
Yeah. So Bach, are there more things in the Musikalisches Opfer Bach left to the performers, Shunske?
Well, most of it. Yeah, well, like I said, the only pieces instrument where the instrumentation is specified is the sonata, and one of the canons. And for example, the Ritterkar, it's written on 3 staves, the one that was released a couple of weeks ago. There's also the Ritterkar in 6 parts that is also written on 6 staves, but can also be played by one person. It has been done. It is possible. So yeah, there again, you have a choice of, do you use 6 people, or do you use 1, or do you use a combination? And as for the canons, actually, now that's where it gets really interesting. It's basically a collection of puzzles, of musical puzzles. And to give an example, you might have just one line of music. So just no 2 staves, just 1 line. And the title says canon in 2 parts. And you go, well, wait a second. There's only one line, so why? Where's the canon? And so then you have to go looking, and then often you'll find a little sign, a little kind of squiggle sign, as a clue from Bach where the second voice, the other missing part, is supposed to come in, and that sort of you have to not just look at the music, but also the clues and hints around the music, which makes it a particularly unique piece, collection of pieces.
Yeah, that's also, I think, where the special character of this recording has its spring. But there's one question from Eduardo Tarantino. Will you use other instruments in new or old combinations for the next releases of the canons? So Shunske, you can say something about that.
Oh, other combinations of instruments.
Yeah, other combinations than we used in the past 2 we released this week. So gamba, fortepiano, violin.
Well, the traverso, which is one of the instruments that is prescribed by Bach, that will make its appearance. So don't you worry, that will come in too. And I deliberately left it to these 4 instruments because I thought the combination of gamba and fortepiano was already quite significant enough that I didn't want to, let's say, clown that so much. And also given the nature of these, well, we'll get to it shortly, but also using special effects, doubling, cloning musicians, having myself cloned, or Mineke, the gamba player, cloned, Leo also cloned. I found a much more interesting way, let's say, and a lot more visually helpful and let's say a way to visually represent how the music is actually on the paper. And so in the end, I ended up not needing, let's say, more than these four players, the flute, the gamba, and myself, and the forte piano. So yeah, it was also a question. Interestingly, this was also recorded in the heart of the first COVID lockdown here in Europe, and so there were things about there were worries about getting too many people together, etc. And this was kind of already sort of in the back of our minds, to do this at some point, and in a way. It was we made let's say as the saying goes, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. The lemon was COVID, and our lemonade was this project, because also the Concertgebouw, which was where in Amsterdam, where we recorded this, this was also completely empty and vacant, and no concerts were happening. And because of that, well, thanks to that fact, we were actually able to, remove all the chairs and have that huge hall where normally symphony concerts would happen, packed with people, was completely empty, and we were able to use that as well. So it was a bit of both a musical choice as well as a circumstantial one, which, in this case, very happily came together.
One other question before we move to the special effects, where Onno has a lot to tell on. Alejandro Holmquist asked, what would be the most historical accurate continuo group based on Frederick's musicians and instruments for performing the trio sonata?
Oh dear. I mean, I think that is... well, I think the nature of continuo, that's always... it's lots of ink has been spilled on that. I think, I mean, I don't know how to answer that question. I think by the word continuo, there was just a general understanding of certain instruments that would usually play that role. Like the bassoon or the harpsichord or the cello or the gamba or the violone or lute, etc. Harp, even, organ, of course. And I think it would have most surely depended on circumstance. You can say the same actually about all the Bach cantatas as well. We know a lot about what instruments would have played, but it's hard to argue, for this specific cantata that we are absolutely certain that this and this and this, these instruments, were the ones that were played. For, the nature is that it's vague. So I don't have, let's say, an answer, a bulletproof answer for that one, except to say that forte pianos were definitely had the attention of Frederick the Great, and I'm sure there were also cellists, but there were also gambists as well. So I think, the choice is, really very much up to the performer, as is any other piece with. Oh, sorry about that. As is any other piece with Continuo.
You told just that the canons in the offering are like puzzles, and that's also where you started to have a great idea on recording this performance. Please explain.
Well, it came actually from a dissatisfaction of, I mean, I had performed the canons before in different settings and things like that. But I was always dissatisfied because, Bach writes canons all the time, or fugues all the time. That is just a central part of his, style as a composer. So in a way, his writing canons is not necessarily a spectacular thing, if I can say so. He has done that. He has done that all through his life. And so when you present the canons just as is, if you take three musicians and you play it, yeah, it's nice. It has the royal theme. It's beautiful. It's you have lots of interesting harmonies that come through, that arise through the lines, the stacked up lines and things. But the thing is, the problem is that the music, the music, which is on a sheet of paper, of course, these particular canons were also meant to be seen as well. Yeah. So the fact that you only have one line or two lines and you're expected to make a canon with three voices or four voices, that's the actually half of the fun, to see that, okay, so it's only two lines, but you have, on this line, you have two clefs. Okay, so that means one of them is in bass clef and the other one's in treble clef. Okay, where does this, this mental kind of Sudoku-like approach is half of the fun, actually. So, yeah, and that's why, for me, it's music not just for the ears, but also for the eyes, and that's what I wanted to show with this. Exactly. Thank you. This is exactly what. So yeah, it says here. So the top line is for the violin. The bass, the second line, the bottom line is in bass clef. Is for some continuo, some sort of continuo, and but it says for two violins. Yeah, so there's supposed to be a bass line and two violin lines on top. So normally speaking, you should have three lines. So one for first violin, one for second violin, and one for the bass. But here you only see two. And so the idea is that the second missing violin part is supposed to enter, it's actually just under the word in, a due violini in unisono. It's under the in. There's this little squiggle with two dots. That's where the second voice, the second violin is supposed to enter with the exact same. So the two violins actually play the same line, but one measure apart, if you follow. So so it made total sense to me that if we show this on the screen, it would be much more, it would be much closer to what's on here on the page, to show the same exact players playing the same exact material with him or herself, and it would still sound, the music would still sound just as beautiful, but then you would also see the logic of the music as well.
Shall we see it now?
Yes.
So your twin brother, Onno. Onno, how did we do this?
How did we do this? Well, first of all, I hate puzzles. Puzzles are my personal nightmare, and I don't like puzzles at all. So when Shunske got to me and said, well, we want to do Musikalisches Opfer, I thought, what is Musikalisches Opfer again? The musical offering. I saw, well, it's really a big collection of puzzles. For me, that was quite a shock, but it was also very great to hear Shunske had a very well thought out visual idea to perform these canons, to like demonstrate how the canon works in visual effects. For this particular canon, do you want to go into this, how we did this?
Well, maybe you can explain a bit why, how we did this. There are two same persons, and why we did it with this canon.
The technique is really very old in film world. Like when you have the early black and white videos, you already have experience. They thought about, well, if we make two takes and we just delete one half of it and we paste the other half on it, we can have like two Buster Keatons in the same frame and have them act with each other, which is very, well, people thought it was a wonder. And actually, now we've done it again, and people do it all the time. It's still very fun to watch. It's still very amazing. And we had like one YouTube reaction who said, "Well, we didn't know Shunske Sato had a twin brother. Is he something we should know about?" Well, no, it's a digital effect, but it's funny that reaction came. So, how do you go about it? It's very simple. You plan very much ahead. You make one take with one Shunske, and then you say to everyone, please go away, please go away. And then we take another take with another Shunske. And that sounds very simple, but it's really, really, really a big puzzle. So you have to take care, for instance, that if one Shunske and the other Shunske walk behind each other, you have to do something or the video will completely mess up. So you have to make very sure, well, Shunske should walk to this place and the other just to this place, and they shouldn't overlap. And then when does the second Shunske go away and when does the first come in? And then you have the problem of playing also. Like those two Shunskes were never in the same space together at the same time. So we had like an audio track going on, and Shunske had a little microphone in his ear, like a little speaker in his ear, so you could hear what he played before, and then they could play another voice on top of it. How he did that, I'm not sure. That's kind of his brilliance, but it worked out really well. But to elaborate a bit about how much a puzzle it really is, when I look at this canon now, I think it's quite nice, but it would have been even nicer if when the piece ends, you hear pop, 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 just a little ending violin phrase, which was of the violinist who walked out screen for the first time. And I would have wanted it to be otherwise, so that the last playing violinist walked out of the frame at the last moment. But it wasn't really possible because we needed then a green screen and we needed extra setup and we didn't have the time. So we had to make a compromise there. But when it kind of happened, I thought, we didn't thought of this before, and now it's happened. Oh, we have to rethink the whole piece. So that's really, the whole recording of it was a big puzzle.
Thank you. And there is a kind of system in the choices we made. When do we double something? When can you tell something about that? Yeah,
what I really thought was great about Shunske's idea was, well, you can use special video effects, but he asked to use them for a specific reason, and that's the best way to use them, when you use effects to how do you say, to underline the meaning of the music. So here we wanted to really demonstrate, when you have a canon, a pure canon, it's like everybody sings the same melody, but different persons start the melody on different times. So when there's a pure canon, like the one we just saw, we just clone the person. So the person that plays the melody gets cloned, also comes in screen and plays the canon. But when we, Bach also deploys some different canon techniques. And maybe Shunske can just explain another way a canon can work, and then I can tell how we try to visualize that.
Well, yeah, so this, in a way, the one that we just saw is the simplest form of the canon. So it's like frère Jacques, dormez. You know, that canon that can go on endlessly. The same line, copied and pasted on top of each other. And Bach, of course, being Bach, made some very, very intriguing and very complicated forms of the canon. The first one that comes to mind is when he takes the same. So in all of these canons, well, let me say that in all of these canons, they're the royal theme, the chom bum 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 bum. That's always in there. That's the common thread in all of these canons. It's always there, and the counterpoint is usually the one that gets played around with. But for example, you have that counterpoint, that line, and then you have to add that line, flip it over, so a mirror image, as it were. So if you have da-da, you get da-da, something like this. So you get a vertical mirror image of that particular line, and then those two lines play together like this. So obviously, I mean, I already mentioned the word mirror, so we had to use one, obviously, to make this clear. So we have a player standing above the mirror, playing his or her line, and then we have the mirror on the ground. The reflection is doing something different. He or she is upside down, so mirrored as well, just like in the music, and then playing that separate line. We also have a very interesting one where you have the same line. You have one line, which is then duplicated, but the second, so the duplicated one is stretched in time. So it's half speed. It's moving at half speed. And yeah, so I think there was even one where it was half speed and mirrored as well. So we used the mirror, but then we had, I guess in this case, the gamba player play a smaller instrument so that she looks bigger, as it were. so she becomes a giant, so to speak.
And it was a good decision not to make her fat.
No, we didn't want to. She wouldn't. Yeah, that would have taken up too much space. But yeah, so we had to think. It was really fun to do that. What are the canon?
We also had one. We have the Kantgrisants. And
yes. Oh yeah, the one that goes backwards and forwards. Yes.
Yeah. You have the same. If I understand correctly, you have the melody, the royal theme.
Yeah.
But Bach composed it so that you, at the same time, you can also play it backwards.
Yes. So you have the same piece of music that can start from both the beginning and the end, and so one player plays this way, the other player plays this way, and when you play them together, and also back, of course, back to front, front to back, you get a nice, very, very beautiful canon.
So of course I had to ask Shunske, well, that's very nice, but if you want to interpret that visually, you have to play that canon while walking backwards.
Yes, and I said, okay.
Never done that before, did you?
Well, no, I mean, I do walk around while I practice. I mean, that's always been a habit of mine. So no, I was just, just like in my practicing room. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I used to practice also watching comic books on my music stand. So,
Today we released another canon, and that's as Shunske just explained. The first one we released was the most easy one in technically speaking. Today the canon we released was already a bit more complex, and Onno, you prepared some behind the scenes material on this. Please show us and explain a bit for us.
Yeah, just for the cook something up from my editing software where you can like see a bit the different takes we took and what we took away and how we edited it. And while Stefan, our moderator, is looking for the right video, what you will about to see is, well, how we put different clones in different spots, and how we had to paint out like the light stands and like a camera grip and stuff. We all had to, it all had to be in frame, and we all had to put it out again. So the end result is really quite clean. So here you can see on the left a big stand with camera on top of it and a light stand. And this was like our first take. Here we have another video. There we have our second take. And then we put both together and we wipe away like the stands. Then we get the end result. Here also, this was the first take. Then the second take with another Leo on the other side, and then we have to put them together. It was really hard for instance, for Leo, the piano player, to tell him, well, you have to sit all the way on the side of your, on your, how do you say, on your
keyboard.
Your keyboard, yeah, keyboard. You have to sit all the way on the side and play like this with your other hand, and you can't move really to the other side, because or else we get two clones who get Siamese twin-like. And Leo, if you have seen him before on all of Bach, you should. He's a marvelous player, but he uses his body very much to show what he feels.
He radiates music.
Yeah, he is the music. So to tell Leo, you can't really move that much. It was really a painful thing. But it's really awesome. I always wanted to see what it looked like on top of the keyboard to have like two hands mirrored, and it's really, really fun to do. And Stefan, I believe, do we have another video of this canon? I believe so. I just made one. At least
we have a question as well. Yeah. From Andreas Winkler. And I think it's a question for Shunske. At first he says, thank you so much for your wonderful work. And then he asked what goes into interpreting a piece like this. What are you particularly thinking about when you are interpreting this piece?
Well, thanks for...
what goes on in your head?
Oh gosh, you don't want to know. It depends on the piece of music, because actually, well, okay, to be very specific, this is actually an interesting question, at least where the canons are concerned, because as a matter of fact, there's at least in the normal sense, normally you interpret a piece of music. You, like if it's a cantata, let's say, you look at what the text is, which occasion it was written for. If it's a concerto, if it has no words, you look at the key, you look at the harmony, you look at the instrumentation. But there are many things to look at. But in this particular set of music, I mean, excepting, let's say, the ricercares and sonatas, let's say. Well, this collection of pieces, in my view, you have two kinds of music, basically. You have music for the ears and music for the eyes. So the music for the ears, that's the sonata, the ricercares, and those are the fully composed pieces of music, the written out music. And the rest, the music for the eyes, it's the puzzle music. And so, for example, for the puzzle music, for the eye music, there is very little interpretation going on, actually. It was a funny experience because also like recording this, you basically play the notes and you play them, of course, beautifully, and you shape them as you normally would. Chromatic lines, you play them differently from which are a little bit separate from each other. Certain rules, let's say, of music making that always applies, but it was much more about the visual effect in this particular instance. And so for that matter, actually recording the canons as as the player was some of the easiest things I've done. The hard work was actually done by Onno, erasing and putting the shots on top of each other and erasing things and editing things sometimes frame by frame, and the work was actually a lot more.
I don't totally agree, because when we talk about the Concrescents will yet be released, but
Yeah.
we had like on out of frame we had two people standing.
Yeah, true.
And
Yeah.
Shunske had to walk in a certain tempo.
But again, that had nothing to do with the music. That was much more about like how fast do I walk without like forgetting my music. So yeah, it didn't have much to do with interpreting. It was much more about the showing. It was about much more about the non-musical things, as it were.
How do I play my notes as beautiful as I can without moving too fast and
exactly.
without drop?
Yeah, without like
falling over my feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like for the sonata, let's say the ear music, the music for the ears, I think it's let's say it's no different from any other sonata, although it does present some interesting challenges, because the key of C minor, it's C minor. It's a perfectly normal key for the violin anyway. But then for the flute, it's a bit of a complicated key, because the traverso is basically an instrument in D. It's meant to play in D major, or B minor, keys closely related to D. And to have it play in C minor, you have to use a lot of complicated fingerings, and you also get a very dark, let's say, a slightly muffled sound, actually, from the instrument. And so what that means as a player, to find different colors, darker colors or more airy colors than you would normally use, because a flute in D major, let's say, is very bright. It's very clear, it's very bright. A flute playing in C minor, completely different instrument. And then we had in this particular case the very interesting balance of fortepiano and gamba, and I found that to be very satisfying, actually, because now you get this very bright bass line, so very kind of slightly reedy sounding bass line, and then a very mellow continuo, and so that also had implications on how we interpreted the piece as well. So yeah, I'm not sure if there are any hard and fast rules of how I, to come back to the question, except to keep looking for clues like this, instrumentation, key, blend, time signature. Yeah, it's I guess you could say that all music is kind of a puzzle in a way.
In the chat, there's a lot about the flute, and Frederick himself played the flute. You already told about the flute and the keys. Someone's asking, of course, the work is a masterpiece. It shows a genius being able to do great things with just about any theme. Do you agree that the theme itself, which Frederick gave to Bach, feels a little offhanded and awkward?
I mean, no, not particularly. I have seen more awkward themes in Bach's compositions than this one. I think if I mean, this one, it has a balance. No, that didn't strike me. No, I have seen stranger themes in And I can think of many in the Wohltemperiertes clavier, for example. Like, how do you what?
Okay. Okay. And how do you think Bach felt about the challenge from Frederick?
Well, I mean,
was it a big challenge for him?
Well, he came back with the music in 2 months, right? So I mean, like, as the story goes, I mean, the only huge challenge for him was the fugue in 6 part. I mean, he had to think about that a little bit, but apart from that, I mean, I think his fugal capacities were just of such a caliber that. I mean, like I said, this is not the first time he writes fugues. The reason why I think Frederick was intrigued was that this kind of contrapuntal writing was already starting to become outdated, seen as old, and people were not doing it as much. And so in a way, I'm sure he was curious about it because of that.
And do you think Bach really improvised the first 3-voice fugue like it's written, or that it's loosely based on the improvisation?
There is no way to tell. I mean, that's just, extempore, on the spot. I mean, we don't know. But truth is that church organists were expected to do this. You find this as one of the criteria. Nowadays, it's just, you can't imagine that. But people back in Bach's day, it was not just Bach, but musicians were expected to be able to do this kind of improvisation. So yes, it blows the mind, but that's how it was.
Yeah. And Rebecca Schaefer-Welsand asked, is there a sense scholarship on the premiere of this piece at Potsdam or in Berlin? And on the role that Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach might have played in the first performances?
Oh gosh, I can't recall of any first performance. I mean, that's a blind what do you call it? Blind spot of mine. My goodness, I do not know. I mean, the only thing that I really know is that Carl Philipp is, I've read that it's suspected that actually Carl Philipp was the one who provided the theme and gave it to Frederick, who then, I don't know. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I actually have a terrible brain for musicology in that sense, but we can come back to you on that.
Okay, some more for Onno. How long did it take you to prepare and the actual recording session? And another question, did you record everything on one single day?
If I could do that, I would be much in demand. No, we had 3 days recording time for the whole musical offering, and that was really short. We would have loved a fourth or a fifth day, but just to show, I have like a little booklet I gave to everyone.
Sorry, oh no, your sound suddenly started going quite haywire.
Let me check with Stefan. Stefan is, could you let us know if Onno is hearable in the live stream? Because we hear him very badly.
Testing. 1,
that's
2,
better.
3.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay.
Let's start again.
Yes, please.
So to be short, we had 3 days to record, not 1, but in 1 day it wouldn't have been possible at all. In 4 days or 5 days it would have been very good to do, but in 3 days we had to really prepare very well. And I did that beforehand in my computer. I built the Concertgebouw in 3D. I built like a digital Shunske and a digital Traverso Speler and a digital Leo and a digital pianoforte, just to decide beforehand, well, what would be the best angles to do and how do we plan all those takes and all those special effects plates we have to layer, and how can we make sure the musicians can hear each other playing and continue on that. So I made all these like pictures and 3D pictures. Maybe Stefan can show some in full screen. But that really helped to visualize what we were trying to do, because it's very easy to say, well, then we mirror Shunske, but in the mirror won't be Shunske, but will be another player, and he will be playing second voice, and then it's much easier to just visualize how it would look. So here you see the canon we've seen already, which has been released. And well, Mineke doesn't really look like Mineke, and the way she's playing like this overly big cello isn't really how she does it in real thing, but it helped us really to decide, well, this should be the best corner. Now we can see both Leos, and so we can film it like this.
So it was really like puzzling, and it took a lot of time to prepare. But to answer Mr. Franco Dekker, how long on forehand were you busy with this? But how many hours did you puzzle?
I did. If I would do it continually, I have worked on this like for 8 full days to visualize and to
work out how we would do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and also talking with Shunske and with you, Marloes, about, well, how does this canon really work? Because you have to first figure out the music and what it's about, and then how we should go ahead. So it was really, really, really complex for the mind. Also Great. Afterwards.
Good to hear. Good to have some background. There's a question for Mr. Sato. Do you have a favorite recording of the musical offering?
To be honest, I didn't really listen very much to this. I mean, I listened, short bits of other people's recordings. There are many available. But no, I cannot say I have a favorite one. And it was more as a reference to see what people were doing, what people had done already. Actually, I was specifically interested to see whether people had done it before on the fortepiano and gamba. And I think I found 1 or 2. So then that was also why I thought I should do this. But no, I cannot say I have one. And I think that's also something I try to avoid doing. Certainly when I prepare a piece of music, I try to kind of have it ring in my head rather than and then if I really need to confirm something, then I'll refer to a recording, but only as a reference to make sure I'm not completely off the mark.
Okay, on the picture now in the screen, you see our recording team, the people behind the screens who always work for all of Bach. And it's maybe that's is also a nice question. In this recording, you played with yourself, you heard yourself through an ear, and it was really puzzling for the recording team as well. Where do we play which voice? How was it for you as a player? And maybe you can also speak a bit for the others to play with yourself with an in-ear voice, hearing yourself playing.
Well, I practiced that at home. I mean, I don't know whether the others did. I have no idea. We should ask them. But I practiced like the canons where I play against myself. I would pre-record one line with a metronome in front of me, also to make sure that I'm more or less in time. And then I would play in my practice room. I would play the on my iPhone the line that I just played, and then play with it. So I did do that as a mental preparation, and that definitely helped in this case, because the first couple times I tried it was very, very bizarre. I didn't quite catch myself, but so practice does help.
Practice. A question from Matteo Magurno. How does the Musikalisches Opfer, musical offering, compares to the Kunst der Fuge? And something to tell with that, we got a lot of donations by fans of all of Bach, fans of our channel on YouTube, and I would like to thank you for that. And with all your donations from 2020, we are going to record the Kunst Fuge in 2021. So that's good to know. And then the question of Matteo, how does the musical offering compares to the Kunst Fuge, in your opinion, Shunske?
Oh, goodness. I think, it's a little bit apples and oranges, because I think the Musikalisches Opfer was written for a very specific occasion. You know, it was for the king, for the theme, with the theme that he got from Frederick. So there was also a very specific purpose. Kunst Fuge, it was more it was more for himself almost, you know, just really to show, you know, what he could do as a fugue composer. And I think the scope, I mean, it's, you know, both are extremely intriguing in their own way, but I think on a purely, we're kind of compositionally, I think the Kunst Fuge, Art of the Fugue, the theme itself, I think that's the main difference. The theme itself does not change in the musical offering most of the time. It stays intact. You can recognize it quite literally in the sonata, in the canons, etc. And in the Kunst Fuge, it's the theme that also mutates. You know, it gets changed, and it gets decorated, and sometimes it's really quite hard to even recognize, you know, where the theme is. And it's a lot more expensive, the Kunst Fuge. So I think they're two completely different pieces in this way. I have a hard time comparing them, except for, you know, a few core facts like these. I mean, I love them both, and I think that's all I can really say about that.
It's for you, it's a bit like apples and oranges.
Yeah, definitely. They're both lovely. I love them both.
Yeah. Let me see. There are a lot of questions.
Great.
Still, I search for one. You. How do you go about reading and interpreting the strange notation in the score of the musical offerings, such as the upside down clefs?
Oh, well, we in modern times, we you know, somebody figured all of these puzzles out some time ago, and luckily we have, let's say, the solution, let's say, to all of these puzzles are available in print. So it's a little bit, it's a bit of cheating, I confess. So when we actually rehearsed these, we didn't, you know, actually sit down with the original thing and puzzle it out. Although there was one exception. There was one canon, I remember, where there were actually two, or maybe there were two canons like this, where there were multiple solutions. So it wasn't just one. So you could stack them like this or like this. Let's say you could stack them in at least two different ways. And I think there was another one like this. So it was interesting to try. Actually, we included both solutions in our recording for that particular one. So yeah, and that particular solution was not available in print, actually. So that we figured out. But yeah, simply for matter of convenience, and so that everybody can immediately enjoy this wonderful collection of pieces, there are modern editions available. Yes.
I'm afraid we are running already a bit out of time. So I think there's time for one or two questions. One is for you again, Shunske, a compliment and a question. I really like your recording of the sonatas and partitas for solo violin. And good to mention that also the direction of that was by Onno, you heard speaking. But which movement, Shunske, did you find the hardest?
Oh, you mean
in this recording, in the recording of the sonatas and partitas?
Oh, sonatas and partitas.
The solo for violin solo.
I really don't know. I think my judgment on that is a little bit clouded by two things. The fact that I know these pieces very well. I've had time to figure out solutions for many of the problems. And it has nothing to do with technique, the technical aspect of things. Sometimes a very, a challenge, technically challenging thing might be musically not challenging, but it might be less challenging than, let's say, a very simple line. A very simple line with very few notes can be actually quite devastatingly hard, because every note really counts. So there is that. So I've known these pieces a bit too long, so to speak, which is an advantage, of course. But also, secondly, in a recording situation, your energy goes up and down. That's just how it is. You sometimes you have this great burst of energy, and the most difficult pieces, you just feel like you're on wings, and you can just play on forever, and then you finish the piece and you you crash, and you can't, you're supposed to play another sonata or partita, and you're like, no, can't do this. And so it really depends on, and I've had to do many takes for things that I never thought I would have to do many takes for. It does happen to all of us. So it really depends on the day and the moment, at least for the sonatas and partitas are concerned.
There's one, we lose two other questions, because one from Rebecca Schaefer. Any info on the instrument Leo van Doeselaar is playing? And I can tell you that it's Gottfried Silbermann copy by Thomas and Barbara Wolf from 1989, 1979. So just as Shunske told, there were a lot of Silbermanns at Frederick the Great, and we used the Silbermann copy for that. And then the last question, do you think the canons were performed in public in Bach's time?
Oh goodness, Marloes, you're the musicologist. Do you know anything about that? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the
we certainly don't know. There are no mentions, but I think there were a lot of canons like this written, and the people had no television, no things. So I think at home, like puzzles, it was great fun to play it, because you and Onno also had a lot of fun preparing this, playing this. So yes, I think they were played, but if they were played in a performance with public, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe like in a kind of Bach gathering, festive together musical evening.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
Do we have any info for Frederick? Did Frederick he gave them to Bach? Gave them to Frederick? Do we know if he responded?
The reaction was exactly.
Yeah, well, he said thank you, but he didn't organize a big performance, or
he just threw it out.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for putting so many, so different and variety of questions in the live chat. Thank you all for watching with us. And last but not least, I would thank also our funders who funded this recording. and we have for Impact. It's a great fund, and they're donating, giving a lot, and made possible this entire recording of the Musikalisches Opfer. And of course, to you all, because you help us a lot with viewing our videos, with posing a lot of questions, with sharing them, and following us. So thank you, because Bach for all. We like to play Bach, and we like to play Bach for you. Thank you.